Good morning, everyone. Leah Dixon here from Port Coquitlam, British Columbia. I am back again for a Wednesday morning live. So excited to be here and stamping with you today. Today I'm going to be featuring the Amber Autumn Bundle. Now it's a little bit late for some of my Canadian friends with Thanksgiving being this coming up weekend, but if you happen to have this bundle or something similar, then hopefully you can craft along with me. And the PDF will be available in my PDF shop as well. So for my American friends, you guys still have a good month for creating with this one before your Thanksgiving. So hopefully you can pop on over there and grab the full PDF with all the measurements and everything. So I'm going to switch to my desktop and we'll get started. This is the Amber Autumn stamp set. And I love the stamp set, but what actually drew me to this bundle were the dies. There's dies in here that cut out the two main images, some leaves and little grasses and stuff to go with it. But it was actually the background die. Let me just pull this out. It was the background die of all the leaves that really drew my attention for this bundle and is the piece that I really wanted to have in my collection. So we're going to do some creating. Our first card actually doesn't use that gorgeous die. There is one in here that we'll use it for. So our first card is one of my favorite go-to templates when I'm just not sure how to start with a stamp set. It's a great way to play around with some of the elements and get going. So it's just a strip of DSP and then your focal image and your sentiment off to the side. So let's grab our bits and we will start creating. I'm going to move the stamp set off to the side. So the paper I chose to pair this stamp set with is the Gathering Together Designer Series paper. It is actually not from, so this is, the Amber Autumn is also part of a suite. The Gathering Together is actually, I believe, an online exclusive. And so it is just a lot of golds and then the old olive Cajun craze, early espresso, and basic beige with a little bit of crushed curry. And so some really beautiful plaids and leaves and lots of textures. So that is the Designer Series paper that I paired up with this. And then I did use some gold accents, but what would actually be really nice with this is our new neutral metallic paper. And yeah, that would be really beautiful with this one as well. So we're just going to start by taking our DSP, and I've chosen a basic beige kind of square pattern. We're going to glue that down to a basic beige border and then put it onto our card front. There we go. And then I like to use liquid glue. I use the wide end so that I can just spread thin layers of it. But whatever adhesive you enjoy using, you could totally go ahead and use anything. All right, so now I'm lining this up so that I've got a slight border on the left. I'm making sure that it's flush with the top, and then just my cutting isn't always extremely accurate. So I can see here it's a little bit off, so I'm just going to grab a pair of snips, flip it over so I can see the inside of the card and I can follow the card edge. And I'm just going to snip off that little tiny bit. There we go. So now, oh, good morning, Gail. Now we have our card base ready to go. I'm going to grab my early espresso ink. There we go. Oh, I was sticking for some reason. All right, grab my early espresso ink and I'm going to put my sentiment down here. So we have a few sentiment choices in this kit. I used Blessed to Have You in My Life because I kind of wanted to use one of each of the sentiments. And so really you could grab any of them. I believe the only one that won't fit is Grateful for You. We just don't have enough space. But Blessed to Have You in My Life, Autumn Wishes, Thanks, or You're Simply the Best are all going to fit in this space. So I'm going to stick with Blessed to Have You in My Life again. I just think that's such a beautiful one for Thanksgiving. And yeah, so we're going to mount that, ink it up, and pop it down here in the little bit of white space that we have left on our card front. Okay, so with that stamped, we are going to use the Early Espresso one more time, and we are going to stamp the pumpkin image now. And we have our square here to do that on. So I love that this image can be die cut because it is such a detailed image. And to fussy cut around the grasses and everything, I think would be a little bit challenging. So there we go. We've got that stamped. Now, with our image stamped, I like to color first before I die cut. If you're the type of person who gets nervous that you're going to mess up the die cutting, then go ahead and die cut first and then color your image. So I am going to start with my greenery, I think. So I'm going to take my light Old Olive and I'm going to come in. You can use the thin tip if you want. If like staying really in the lines is important to you. For me, I kind of look at this brush tip as more of like a watercolor tip. So if I go out of the lines just a tiny bit, it's kind of more that watercolory look, and it's not that important. Also, having a really light touch when you're using it helps you stay kind of more in the lines because it's the brush tip. If you push down on it, well, partially you will end up fraying your tip, which isn't great, but also it makes a wider impression. All right, and we'll do our little vine up here. There we go, and a few of these greeneries. So if you miss some of the greenery as you're going through the first time and then you notice it as you're coloring in the pumpkin and stuff, just grab your light Old Olive again and go back and add in those details. Now I am going to use my fine tip for this next bit. I'm just coming in and adding to the lines that are already there with the dark Old Olive. So just kind of tone on tone, adding some detail to this. All right, I think that's good. Excellent. So now the next piece that I'm going to color is my gourd. And I'm actually going to use light Daffodil Delight and light Darling Duckling together to color in this gourd. So I'm going to start with my light Daffodil Delight. Oh, that tip's no good. So I'm going to use my finer tip just because my other tip is a little bit frayed. And I'm going to color the whole gourd in light Daffodil Delight. And then I'm going to use my fine tip Darling Duckling to add in the darker details. The reason I'm not using my dark Daffodil Delight is because the dark Daffodil Delight is actually a very bright color, and I wanted to keep this kind of more subdued. So there we go with our gourd. Now I'm going to grab my pecan pie, my light pecan pie, and I'm going to color the tops of my gourd and my pumpkin. Both of them. There we go. And then I'm going to grab my dark pecan pie and just go over those accent lines. There we go. All right. Now we can actually grab our Daffodil Delight again. I forgot to do our little wheat tips here. So I'm using light Darling Duckling for our little wheat tips. And actually I'm going to use it for our corn as well. There we go. All right, looking good. Now, oops, I only did part of that leaf. So I had originally done this leaf in Cajun Craze, but I actually didn't love the look of it. So we're going to go back in and just do this one. Even though the leaves are turning at this time of year, we're just going to continue to do this one green. I might add just a little bit of yellow to it just to soften it up and make it look like it's starting to change. Oops, wrong tip. Just come in here and give it a little once over with the yellow just to soften the color. And there we go. All right, and now we are left with our shadows, which we're going to do in light pecan pie. And then our 2 pumpkins. So these pumpkins I'm going to color in light Cajun Craze. Now, if you wanted to do these in pumpkin pie, go ahead. They'll be brighter and have a slightly different look on the page, but they'll still look very festive, very autumny. I was just trying to keep my color palette minimalized for this card class. So because Cajun Craze matches the oranges on some of the other DSPs that I'm using on other cards, I thought I'd just stick with that as my color. But this card actually doesn't have any Cajun Craze on it aside from the embellishments we're adding later. So you could totally go ahead and use pumpkin pie to color in this pumpkin. There. All right, and then I'm going to use the fine tip of my Cajun Craze. Oh, good morning, Keisha. And I'm going to do all of the like lines and accents and stuff on here. Now, I'm not super careful when I do these. I just kind of get my markings in the same general area. I know there are some people who take their time really and very painstakingly color these. It's your preference, really. I like to be a faster crafter. Don't have the patience for really going slow and doing all the fine detail. There we go. All right, and there we have our pumpkins all colored in, and we're ready to die cut this. So our dies have the images that can be fully cut out. So we're going to grab that. You can use any machine you want. This does fit on the mini, which is nice. The only die from this set that doesn't fit on the mini is that full background piece. But all of our other images fit on here beautifully. So now we just have to turn this around. I think that's the corn. Yeah, there we go. Turn this around until it fits around our image. Kind of line up your corn tips, line up your leaves on the other side. There we go. And around we go. And we have our beautiful image all cut out. So the next job is to attach this to our card front. Let's get the one that's not finished. So I'm going to attach this with dimensionals, but I'm going to keep them more to the center so that I can then tuck my other elements underneath and not worry about bumping into a dimensional. So I'm actually using up the trims on my minis. So I'm just going to do that. You could also use mini dimensionals for this. It doesn't have to be the big ones. All right. Hopefully that's how that one is going to be in the way. Let's move that. We'll just use 2. 2 is going to be more than enough to hold this in place. All right. So I'm going to take this and put it down kind of lower. Actually, maybe a little bit higher. There we go. All right, and make sure your pumpkins are kind of sitting so they look like they're actually sitting flat. There. And now we're going to add some of our metallic pieces here. So these were pre-die cut using the leaf and the grass dies from this set. And so I'm just going to pull out those center pieces. There we go. And to attach these, I'm actually just going to put a mini glue dot at the bottom of each one. So to do that, I'm going to grab my take to pick tool. I'm going to pick up a mini dimensional, put it down. All right, and then I'm just going to peel that backing off. And this is why I wanted to keep my dimensionals kind of towards the inside, is I want to tuck that under and then push it down. And then same thing up here. I'm going to take this leaf, tuck it under and push it down. And then finally our little grasses here. I'm going to take that, tuck it under and push it down. All right. And then we finish this one off with some Cajun Craze and gold dots. So I just got this packaged up, just a strip of them in here. These cards for this card class to go were actually the cards from my team meeting last month. So every month with my team, the InkPad Pals, we do a card class online. So you can be anywhere in Canada and still be able to join us. And we create like a little ready to go card class together. So I wanted to share this card class this month because we have an amazing starter kit deal on right now. So I wanted you to be able to see one of the perks of being part of my team is getting these card classes, and we have a lot of fun doing them together. So that is the first card in this month's Amber Autumn card class to go. I'm going to put that off to the side and we'll grab our next card. So our next one is such beautiful coloring. I love these autumn colors. Oh, thank you, Gail. So this is using, again, a lot of that DSP from the Gathering Together designer series paper. And I just love all the metallic embellishments on here. All right, so this white piece is for the inside of our card. And I didn't stamp anything on it. You could totally go ahead and stamp an acorn on here and color it in. I wanted to keep mine just a little more simple. Lots of coloring with this stamp set as well, which takes a little bit of time. So to keep things moving, I think I skipped that part. So if you've got the extra time to color the inside, go for it. I also like to stamp and decorate my envelopes. So that's always a nice thing to do. All right, so we are going to take our designer series paper. I like to lay them out first and just kind of get a sense of where the coloring is. Now, I actually don't want this beautiful leaf to get lost. And, oh, that little mushroom will get lost, so if I switch it. Okay, so we will lose. I'm going to save the mushroom over saving the leaf because you want to think about what's still going to be visible. So if I do it this way, I get still my metallics and my mushroom. So just kind of lay out your pieces. They'll be different depending on where they got cut from the main page. And so I just kind of play around with that until I get the look that I like. So that's how I'm going to glue them down. And then I just pick them up one by one. And I'm really focusing on having those equal borders on the sides, top, and then eventually in the center. So it's pretty small. I'd say it's probably 1/8 of an inch. Maybe a little bit more than 1/8 of an inch. Definitely not a full 1/4 of an inch though. And we're going to glue those in. And then this one's a little bit easier because you've got 3 sides to line it up with. Give that some good spacing. There we go. Now we'll go ahead and do our lowers. Okay, nice. And finally, our last corner. And this one I have to make sure that I get it on the right direction so my mushroom's visible and right way up. All right, there we go. So that is the base of our card all done. Now I can grab, you've got two stylish shaped stitched squares in here. And we're going to go ahead and stamp thanks on the white one in the bottom left corner. And once we've done that, then we can glue them together and glue them onto our card front. So I'm going to grab my thanks, grab my early espresso ink, and snap that down in the bottom left corner. There we go. So now with those two done, I can glue them together. So I just center this one onto the larger early espresso one. And then we'll glue these to our card front. So I'm trying to keep layers minimalized. Our next layer will go on with dimensionals. So these ones I'm gluing so that we don't get too thick of a card. All right. The lines on the DSP for this one really do help get everything glued down straight. Now I did end up with a little bit of glue there. Let's see, I think I have a glue eraser. I do. Beautiful. Okay. The more you let the glue dry before you use the dry eraser, the easier it is to come off. There we go. All right. So now that we've got those bits done, I'm going to set that to the side, grab my square, and I've got my acorns here. We're going to stamp this acorn image onto our square using early espresso ink. So creating cards for autumn, I think, are my favorite. I love the color palette for autumn. It's just, yeah, one of my favorite times of year. So to color these, I use pecan pie for the acorns. So I started with a light pecan pie, and I just colored the actual like nutty part of the acorn. There we go. And then I used my dark pecan pie, and I colored the stem and the tops of the acorns first. Stem as well. There we go. All right, and then I came back in with my fine tip, and I added some dark pecan pie just to all the lines on the tops, on the stems, and on the actual acorn itself. Just darkened that up a little bit. All right, and then this came through on my top again. There we go. All right, so those are our acorns colored. And then I did our leaves in like truly fully turned autumn colors here. So we're going to color them fully in light Cajun craze and then come back through with our dark to give some accent. Now, if you wanted to play with some color and maybe mix your Cajun craze and your Darling Duckling together to give like a little bit more of a mottled look on here. You could have so much fun doing that, and so many different ways that we could color these. I'm going to keep mine pretty simple though and just stick with the Cajun Craze. All right, there we go. And it's amazing to me how this leaf looks so plain with just the light Cajun Craze. And then when we go back through and add the shading with the dark, it just brings this leaf to life. And it's so easy to do with the blends. Coloring was never really my thing before blends. And now I feel like everything I color looks fantastic. It's completely the pen. All right. So then we come in with our dark and just do all that highlighting. There we go. So just anywhere where you see those little black lines that they've put, we're just going to go in and add that darker coloring. Love it. Awesome. So hopefully you guys have some great plans for the upcoming long weekend if you're here in Canada. I'm not sure what the weather's supposed to turn out to be, but it's always nice to have the extra days and extra time with family. Okay, so we've got that all colored. Now we're going to grab our dies again. And this time we're grabbing the leaf outline. There we go. All right. So grab my mini machine, move this out of the way. Grab my mini machine and my plates. Pop that on there. This one's a bit easier to line up. The stem, it makes a pretty obvious orientation piece. Okay. So I just want to make sure that all the tips of my acorns are in there, my stem, my leaves, and then we roll that one through. There we go. Okay, and there's our acorns all cut out. So now I'm going to, before I attach these to my card front, I'm going to take a little piece here of Old Olive linen thread. This comes in a 2-pack. You get Old Olive and Early Espresso. And I'm going to tie a giant floppy knot here. So like my knot, my bow pieces are as big as my floppy ends. I'm going to flip my acorn over. For this one, you could use whatever adhesive you'd like. I'm going to try and find some kind of dry adhesive here on my desk. There we go. And some tear and tape. You could use seal, you could use mini glue dots, like whatever you want. And I'm just going to put a little strip of it across there. And then I want to pick this up right there in the center. So I've just kind of done that. So my big floppy bow is behind my acorns now. And I'm going to flip this over, and you can see it went right through all of my adhesive. And then I'm going to pop some dimensionals on here around that. Peel those backings off. And we're going to put this down on our card front right on that square. I am going to put it down though so that like bits of it fall off the square. Okay, so just like that. And pull my ends in and trim up my ends now. That one doesn't need trimming. In fact, I'm just going to move it around like that. There we go. And then we finish this off by embellishing it again with our Cajun Craze and gold dots. So I'm going to put one up here in this space. And I'm going to put two over here in this larger space. Just like that. And there you have card number 2 completed from our Amber Autumn card class to go. All right. My third card is my favorite. This one uses that beautiful full background die. Just love it. So we have a basic beige card base. And inside, I didn't bother with a white liner for this card. There's no other white on this card, and this inside is light enough to write on, so I just left it as is. So in your kit, or I guess I'm not able to do kits this month thanks to Canada Post, but what you would do is cut your Cajun Craze and die cut it so that you've got this lovely piece. And we're just going to go ahead and attach it straight to a piece of Designer Series paper. It's got, not sure if you guys can see it on the screen, but it's got this really cool little circular pattern on the early espresso DSP. Love it. So there's a few ways you can do this. When you die cut this piece, you could put a full sheet of adhesive backing on here and turn this into one giant sticker. That kind of scares me though, because you have to have it lined up perfectly before you start. So I would suggest using either mini glue dots or dots of glue. Dots of glue allow you to kind of wiggle it a bit. Mini glue dots, you have less wiggle, but it allows for a more permanent adhesion, like from right away. You don't have to let it dry. So that's what I'm going to do, is use mini glue dots. So I'm just popping them on here in spots that look big enough to accommodate a mini glue dot. Now I'm using leftover ones from a paper pumpkin kit. The ones on the roll are actually a little bit nicer because you won't have to peel the backings off. But I am still on a kick. I'm trying to get caught up on 5 years worth of paper pumpkins. I'm doing a pretty good job. But it means I actually end up with a lot of leftover mini glue dots because they always give you more than you need in your kit, which is nice. All right, I think that's going to be pretty good for adhering that and having it stay flat on our card. So now I'm going to peel my backings off. You can use your take your pick tool to do this piece too. I just am not as skilled with that as I am with just using my fingernails to remove these. Okay. There we go. A little bit of time here. Okay, I just have 2 more. There we go. Giving them a little push down before you try to remove the backing helps as well. All right, now that we have that done, I'm going to stand up for this part so that I can really line this up before I let it go. Now, the nice thing with mini glue dots is although they stick pretty well once you stick them, you can kind of set it down. And as long as you don't push it down, it's not really stuck yet. And then once I'm happy with where it is, I push it down. And then I actually like to flip it over and rub it. And you can even get these kind of fun tools. Stampin' Up! Doesn't have one, but online you can find them. They're like a little air hockey puck. And you can just use that for rubbing. So you get like a full adhesion. There we go. The glue dots from the kit are your favorite. I know, Keisha, I love them. I find them so easy to use. All right, so now that we've got that done, we're going to actually take our early espresso twine and wrap it around twice and tie a bow before we attach this to our card base. So I want my sentiment about there, which means I'm going to take a little bit for tying a bow, hold it onto my card front there. That's where I want to tie my bow. So I'm going to hold it there and then wrap it around twice and then come back, and right where I want my bow is where I'm going to tuck under and tie a knot. I always tie a knot before I tie a bow. If my ribbon's too thick to tie a knot before I tie the bow, then I actually just do a lay flat piece of ribbon and then tuck a piece under. But if I'm wrapping around, I'm tying a knot. It's happening. Okay. The other advantage to tying the knot first is I find your bow sits better when you've got a knot in place. Okay, and then we tie our bow and we'll trim our ends. I don't like ends that go off the card front. I know some people love that. I think it's great and looks beautiful. And then when you go to put it in the envelope, it's super impractical. All right, now that we've got that bow tied, we're going to flip this over. This kills me just a little bit to put adhesive across the beautiful metallic plaid. But that's okay. I've used the metallic plaid on other cards. And we're going to attach this right to our basic beige card base. There we go. And again, I always like to flip it over to do this part. That way you can't accidentally catch an edge. And you can get some good adhesion. And there we go. So we have our gorgeous card base all ready. I'm going to set this to the side and we're going to stamp our sentiment on here. Again, shocker, we're going to use early espresso ink. So I'm going to grab this sentiment, pop it on a block. Early espresso. Now when I stamp this one though, I am stamping it to the left side of my banner. We're actually going to trim off the right edge. There we go. And how far over you trim this is really personal preference. So you can see I trimmed mine really close. So like basically looked at how much of a gap I had there and gave myself the same gap on the other side. You can do that with a paper trimmer, a pair of snips, like whatever you want. And I am trimming it to the edge of the card. So the other thing you can do is mount it on your card where you want it, and then go in and use the backside as a guide for trimming it. That's actually what I'm going to do today. So I'm going to use mini dimensionals, or you could use the very thin edges of your regular dimensionals or cut dimensionals in half. But the idea here is that I want to leave a crease in the center for my twine to go through. So I'm going to do that, peel those up. And I'm going to attach this to my card front. I like it like that. There we go. I'm going to tuck that underneath so it's not covering up my words. Pull that bow up like that. Okay. And now I am literally just going to flip this over and use this card as my guide for trimming it. There we go. So that's how I got the right sizing for trimming that piece. Oh, thank you, Annette. This one is such a quick and simple card as well. I love quick and simple. All right, now we are going to put our gems on here. So I wanted enough space there for a gem. So that success, there we go. And then a few more on our card front. And I'm putting them on the early espresso piece so that they kind of pop and are a little bit of a shine. All right, that is card number 3 from our Amber Autumn card class to go. And our 4th card is a great one for when you have scraps. We have 4 different pieces. Now, in my case, I actually did use, it's 1 DSP, and I just flipped one of the pieces over. But this is a great one if you've got 4 scraps that coordinate but are completely different. This one works beautifully. So we're just lining those scraps up in a row, and gluing them to a piece of cardstock. So that is where we're going to start. Now, I always like to lay out the pieces ahead of time just so that I get a sense of what it's all going to look like. So I think I want those mushrooms really visible, which means I'm going to make them my first panel because that's the one that doesn't really get covered. And that's a little bit boring, so I'm going to put that down there. That's going to get covered up by our sentiment, the part that doesn't have metallic. And then same with right here. We're going to go like that. And then the part that's not metallic will get covered up. And then I can do the plaid if I want, and that's going to look really nice. Or I can flip this over and have kind of a brighter little metallic and mushroom piece on there. So let's see though, when I go ahead and put that on there, I've got that, or I've got the plaid. That's actually a tough choice. I'm not sure. I don't know. You guys can chime in. Let me know. Do you like the plaid? Or do you like the metallic mushrooms? I think I'm actually leaning, I love plaid, but I think in this case I'm actually leaning away from the plaid. I'm going to start gluing the other pieces. You guys can let me know what you think, and hopefully I'll get some responses in here before I get to gluing one or the other. All right. Oh, I see Keisha made a comment, but it's covered up. There we go. You think the mushrooms too, Keisha? Yeah, I know. I do love plaid, but I don't know. The metallic mushrooms are calling to me. Okay, so I am trying to keep an equal border on these pieces. I like to do my two ends first, and then I can center the inside pieces from there. That way it never ends up looking lopsided. We just change up how much of a gap we leave between them on the inside. All right, beautiful. All right. Any other votes, plaid or mushroom? Mushrooms winning. There we go. All right, give it another moment before I tie that or glue that. I will stamp our sentiment. So for this one, I am stamping Grateful for You using Early Espresso. Again. You know, and have fun. If you want to make these with a different sentiment, go grab a different sentiment from another stamp set and use those as well. I'm just sticking to the sentiments in here in case this is maybe the only stamp set you have on hand. All right, so it looks like mushroom's the clear winner. So that's what we're going to do. We'll change it up, get rid of the plaid. And, oh, they're so cute. All right, there we go. So we've got that. Now that we have those layers done, we're going to take our plaid, and just like before, or plaid, our linen thread, and just like before, I'm going to hold a little piece here, enough here to be able to tie a bow, because that's where I want my bow to be. And then I'm going to wrap around twice. Oops. Wrap around twice and make a knot. And I'm kind of doing it between that first and second panel is where I want my bow to be. All right, now there's our knot. And then I can tie my bow. Just like that. And then we take a moment to shape it how we want it, let it fall how we want it, trim up our ends. There we go. And now this piece can get glued to our background that is done in the Birch 3D. So I don't know. I always debate over which side to use. I think this time I'm going to use the debossed side. think I did the first time as well. And we're just going to center that on there, but I am gluing it down. I'm not adding any extra depth to this card by using dimensionals. If you know that you're not mailing yours, go ahead and use the extra dimensionals. Gives it a great look. It just, I find, it costs too much to mail them that way, and also they get a little squished down in the mail. All right, there we go. So with that done, we can now glue this to our Cajun Craze card base. And, oops, there we go. So center that. And I also have a white insert for this one to glue in, just because Cajun Craze is a little bit dark. You could write on it and have it be visible, but it wouldn't look as nice. So glue that inside. There we go. Oops, I got a little blob of glue in here, and I want to erase that now before I glue my card shut. Okay, there we go. No glued closed cards. Now we're going to add our sentiment. So again, I do like to try to get my adhesive above and below that linen thread, just so it doesn't get glued shut. So you have a few options. You could, if you've got the thin strips of dimensional, you could grab those. I actually have some somewhere, but I don't want to go digging for them. So I'm going to take the edge of my mini and I'm going to cut these really thin little strips. And then I'm going to put one at the top and one at the bottom. Nobody ever said you had to use your dimensionals the way you received them. There we go. So we've got those thin little strips of dimensional now. And we're going to place that down over top of our linen thread, so it's like a little channel for our linen thread to go through. And I do want this sticking off the end just a tiny bit. There we go. And then finishing touch is to add, our Cajun Craze and gold dots again. And actually this is kind of fun that we use the mushrooms, because with it being a white base, those dots are going to stand out so much more on this card than they did on the plaid. Oh, I love it. There we go. And that is our last card from the Amber Autumn card class to go. So I'm just going to bring back all the cards that we created today so you can see. I'll keep our original creation version there. So we've got that one. We have our Autumn Wishes. Thanks. And blessed to have you in my life. So these are the 4 cards that are part of the Amber Autumn card class to go. This month, because I can't mail out kits, any $60 order from my shop will get you the PDF sent to you by email for free. And if you live outside of Canada, the PDF is available for $10 Canadian in my shop. I will have it posted there within the hour. The tutorial's ready to go, but I like to include the link to the YouTube version of this video so that as you're reading my instructions, if they're not quite making sense, you can go back and watch the video and everything. Oh, hi, Evelyn. Oh, so nice to hear from you. It's kind of strange. I haven't been able to do my Wednesday lives lately, so I'm glad to be here, and I hope you watch the replay. All right, so everybody, thank you so much for joining me. I will be doing live videos on Wednesdays as much as I can, although I've been working a lot of Wednesdays lately, and I am still looking for a new time. I'm just trying to find a flow in our lives that will work consistently. So until then, I'll be popping on randomly, and hopefully you catch me. Otherwise, make sure to subscribe to my newsletter, because I do always send out the replays of my videos. So if you miss my live, you'll get the replay right in your inbox and not miss a beat. Oh, thank you so much, Evelyn. All right, bye everybody. See you soon.